Nation, especially this time of year when the leaves are changing colors. Saturday's eruption took visitors by complete surprise. As Will Ripley reports, victims' families are in a state of shock.
One by one, they're carried off the mountain. More than 30 people with no pulse, in a state of cardiac arrest. All of them near the summit when Mount Ontake erupted. Home video shows a giant plume of gas and ash surrounding and blinding these hikers in seconds. Security cameras captured Mount Ontake rumbling to life Saturday, its first major eruption in 35 years. More than 200 climbers came to Japan's second highest volcano for the peak of autumn viewing. So many people were near the summit, says this hiker. Everyone started running, but some were hurt and couldn't move. The volcano's rising plume is disrupting air travel. Volcanic ash is raining down on hundreds of rescuers below. They face danger from nearly continuous seismic activity and the looming threat of another big eruption possible in the coming days. Please help us, says Kyokazu Tokoro. His son and his girlfriend reached the summit just minutes before noon Saturday, just when Ontake blew its top. Both are still missing. Now, Tokoro sits on the floor of this evacuation center, waiting. All I can do is beg for your help to get us information, he says. Please. As each hour passes, desperation grows. Families are waiting for word on their loved ones who were dangerously close to a sleeping volcano that suddenly woke up. Will Ripley, CNN, Mount Ontake, Japan.
It's just that video. Pedram Javahari joins us now, is really chilling.
Yeah.
And to think, Pedram, they were just out for a fall hike and then suddenly it explodes and the danger is still there. It could happen again. Of course, no one will be there again, but...
Natalie, it's one of the more beautiful places in Japan. It's on a Saturday. It's sunny skies, and it's the autumn season. So the conditions are as ripe as it gets to draw people in a place that already draws people, even when the weather is not ideal. But the circumstances, certainly a worst-case scenario set up when you go in for a closer look across where this region is. And again, we're talking about just about 200 kilometers west of Tokyo. So many flights had to be rerouted as they were approaching Tokyo when the initial eruption occurred here. And keep in mind that in Japan, they're not only seismologically ready for this, but volcanologically as well when it comes to volcano expertise and also earthquake expertise. This region, certainly one of the foremost regions in the world to be familiar with that. But this volcano, one of the ones that we call a phreatic volcano, because very little notice was given by the volcano itself. Very little in the way of activity, magma movement, earthquakes in this region, very minimal, as opposed to, say, Bardabunga, which occurred several months ago back across portions of Iceland that caused some 10,000 quakes that led up to the initial eruption that occurred in that region. So again, taking a lot of people by surprise. And here's the perspective as you close in on the second largest and tallest volcano in Japan. Now, the photograph's pretty astounding. You take a look, this photograph, actually our own Matt Booth, who is an operations manager out of Hong Kong in CNN Bureau there, was traveling from Canada to Hong Kong, snapped this photograph as the eruption was occurring, as the flight was passing this region. And of course, rescue operations, Will just telling you there, we have some 500 rescue workers deployed here, the Army with helicopters trying to do what they can when 250 people are heading up to the summit. And look at the video here. I want to show you the pyroclastic flow, as it's known here, coming down the mountainside as the eruption occurs. We're talking about this here. Explosive volcanic eruptions like this one give you some ash, some hot gas, rock fragments ranging small as ash to as large as boulders in size, traveling in excess of hurricane force, over 120 kilometers per hour. And the temperatures of this are about 700 degrees Celsius or 400 Fahrenheit. So they would basically shatter, destroy, bury, and incinerate anything in their direct path. So incredible to think that people survived this. And of course, the image here I want to share with you, kind of showing you some of the cabins where a lot of people, well over 100 people, are taking shelter in these cabins that potentially saved their lives. And the Japan Meteorological Agency, Natalie, is saying that over the next 6 to 10 days, eruption is still a possibility. And over the next 2 to 3 months, a possibility remains quite active before everything begins to dwindle down. So this is not going to be over, at least even the small scale event. And, an eruption of this proportion has not occurred for 35 years. So big deal in this part of the world, yeah.
It's just unbelievable, and people just weren't thinking a thing about it, out for a fall hike, and we saw that father and what those families must be going through.
One of the scariest things you can imagine, seeing that coming towards you.
Oh, my goodness. All right, Pedram, we'll see you a bit later. Thank you. Well, fierce battles, more airstrikes, and an ISIS counteroffensive. It is all happening in Iraq and Syria. The U.S. and its allies have launched new attacks on the extremist group. They bombed ISIS targets in the Syrian cities you see here, destroying some refineries, armored vehicles, and we're told a small command center held by ISIS. In Iraq, American warplanes destroyed 2 checkpoints near Fallujah and an ISIS safe house outside Baghdad. But all of that, and we have to report to you that ISIS fighters are still close to seizing the key Syrian city of Kobani. They launched a counteroffensive against Kurdish forces on Sunday, despite several U.S. airstrikes. No word yet on casualties. But activists there say electricity and water are cut off and basic supplies, including food, are running low. Tens of thousands of Kurds have already fled north to Turkey. Our Phil Black is following the battle lines around Kobani, where he witnessed some very intense fighting.
Crowds of Kurds watched from Turkey. They screamed in anger. Some wept as their fellow Kurds just across the Syrian border were pounded by ISIS. They watched this truck-mounted artillery repeatedly fire into a village. The sound hits seconds later. We see Kurdish fighters running between buildings, desperately taking cover. Pinned down here, they smash a hole in a wall to get away. The noise of small arms and heavy weapons cuts through the sky. One mortar round flies way off target.
Just over there, where you can see that smokestack, that was clearly mortar fire coming from across the border in Syria, landing here on Turkish territory. And you can see pretty close to where we're standing, pretty close to where all of these people are standing.
The crowd is furious. The people here say the coalition's airstrikes against ISIS haven't worked.
The terrorists are coming and shooting our people and killing the woman here, killing the child here.
These ISIS fighters are advancing from the east to take Kobani, the major city in this region. On Friday, we saw ISIS trying to move in from the west, and they're attacking from the south too. Kurds on both sides of the border fear Kobani will fall unless international air power stops ISIS quickly. Phil Black, CNN, on the Turkey-Syria border.
It's amazing the footage that they get. Well, dozens of suspected jihadists are about to go on trial in Belgium. We'll look at the charges they face, who they allegedly are, coming up here.